you need to have more conversations and put yourself in positions to have more conversations. You don't want to be perceived as trying to make a sale. You need to be educational, have active dialogue with people.
You don't get someone off the fence to buy a house. When their life event says that it's time to buy a house, they don't buy one because Brandon said to buy one.
The old diamonds, diapers, diplomas, divorce, and death, right? That's why people move, not just because they want to. They're moving because they have to.
We compromise on price, we compromise on products. Usually people come up in price to get the things that they want unless there's just a hard limit.
They're not doing this every day like you are. Don't make assumptions about what people know. There's something that's happening in their life that's causing that move to happen. It's too big a decision, too much money to spend to do on a whim. That is like the kiss of death if you are thinking that way. All right, guys. Let's jump in. I don't know how I'm going to title this episode, but I wanted to talk about the psychology of decision making and how people make decisions, because I've been having a lot of conversations with agents that are trying to get their buyers and sellers off the fence to do something, but the conversations are not productive. And so we need to talk about how people make decisions and how to walk people through the decision-making process. So let's jump in. And one of the things I want to reference, if you haven't listened to the Art of Communication podcast with Jamie Miller, you need to, because we talk about communication. And communication has never been more important than it is now, especially as we got all this NAR stuff going on. The way we're going to be dealing with buyers needs to be, we needed to have discussions with buyers on the front end. So we're going to talk about all that. By the way, this is a special Masters edition. This is Masters Week. You'll be hearing this later, but RL just got back from there.
Yeah.
You had a couple, you spent a day hanging out at Masters.
I've been lucky enough to go twice. And many people never get to go once. So I try not to take that for granted, but I've been on Saturday, Sunday, now I've been on a Tuesday, Wednesday. So yeah. I'm fortunate. I feel good about it. The practice rounds are amazing. The guys spend so much time with the kids, and I took my kids, which was great. Super laid back atmosphere. It was awesome.
So I didn't get to go, but I got some merch out of it.
I got you.
I'm excited.
I'll take care of you.
So I was like, dude, let's wear these for the podcast. All right. Anyway, by the way, don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast, or click the little subscribe button on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Please leave us a rating. And comment. I love the discussion. When we get some comments going, I love the discussion. So if you've got a question, if you've got something that you that stuck out about this episode, please leave us a comment. And that helps with algorithms and all that stuff. So we would appreciate it. Okay, so let's go back to the content here. So number one, you need to understand, first of all, that scripting isn't bad. Okay, but it's just a starter. The reason that we do scripting and we teach scripting in Six Figure Real Estate School is because it's a good way to launch a conversation with someone and to do it in a productive way, especially what we're doing for sell by owners, or we're meeting with people at open houses, asking questions in the right way. But that's just to get them started. And understanding the deeper reason why people make decisions is much more important, and also being able to converse with them and walk them through that process. And it's an active process of listening and being able to respond, and then also knowing where you are in the context of the conversation and knowing what people need to hear. And so that's what we want to talk about today. So scripting isn't bad, okay? But dialogue is what we're aiming for.
Yeah.
It's just to get us off the ground.
The people that are the best at this quickly move from script to basic human conversation, right? They're reading they're listening to what the other person's saying, they're reading it, and then they're applying, appropriate communication back to them. And the quicker that you can get off the script into just basic human communication, those are the people that win.
The way that I think about scripting is it's like the landing gear on a plane. And as soon as you get that plane off the ground, guess what? They put that landing gear up.
Yeah, you're listening, and anything that they say that you may be able to elaborate on, or share some of your own experiences, or share why you're like them, you're going to be better off. So get off the script and on to normal communication like you'd have with your friends. Yeah, that wins. Because
you don't want to be perceived as trying to make a sale. You're not a salesperson as much as you are a consultant and an educator, right? Helping people walk through this decision-making process. So a couple of conversations I've had with real estate agents over the last couple of days. They're like, well, I'm just not very salesy. I need to be more salesy. I'm like, no, you don't need to be more salesy. You need to be educational, and you need to have active dialogue with people. So don't be salesy, be an educator, be a consultant.
All the script does is get you from a completely cold conversation to something a bit more warm where you guys can go back and forth a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So the other thing is, yeah, you're not going to get people to do something that they're not ready to do. This buying a house, selling a house is such a major thing, right? It's a life event thing, and it's usually around a life event. We'll talk more about that later. But you're not going to be like, hey, I'm going to talk somebody into selling a house, or I'm going to talk somebody into buying a house. It's not going to happen. So stop trying to talk people into it.
I'm not a big fan of the phrase, and this may be in the list of things we're about to say, but I'm not a big fan of the phrase like get people off the fence. You don't get someone off the fence to buy a house.
Right.
They buy a house when they need to buy a house, when their life event says that it's time to buy a house. They don't buy one because Brandon said to buy one.
Yeah.
So you're not going to get them off the fence. You just need to have enough conversations with people so that someone is ready to buy that house.
Exactly. When the other thing is, when I'm talking to agents, one of the first conversations I'm having with agents that we work with in a coaching capacity is, give me a snapshot of your business. Tell me how your business is going. And whenever they start to talk about individual clients and like, I can't get these people off the fence because but I'm working with these people and they're ready to buy a house in 6 months, and I'm working, that to me is like the kiss of death if you are thinking that way. Okay? You don't want to perceive your business as individual client interactions. You don't need to get your clients off the fence. You don't need more leads. You need to have more conversations and put yourself in positions to have more conversations. And even when you're using leads, and that's going to sound like I'm not, a proponent of leads. I am. There are certainly scenarios where we have paid for leads and do pay for leads, but it's just to increase conversations. Leads are just more conversations. They're not some magic bullet and we've talked about that in the lead podcast. They're not some magic bullet where like, hey, if I buy leads, then people are going to start using me. It is just a way to fill more conversations for you.
That's right. And, people, you have to place them in the right bucket too. So you might be having conversations with people who are 6 months out. Well, guess what? For a person who's 6 months out, you're not dropping everything to go show them a house across town.
Yes.
You're using that time that you would have done that to have more conversations, and hopefully someone else is ready to buy a house in the next 30 days or 15 days. So you've got to up the conversations. It's all a numbers game.
Yeah.
Yes, you're trying to help people find the house of their dreams, but you need to have enough conversations with enough people so that you've got a pipeline of people who are buying now, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. You're trying to fill it all the way out.
Yeah. And I guess what I would sort of like to put a bow on that, I would say stop focusing on what you need to do to get that client to move forward, and start focusing on having more conversations with clients that want to move forward.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, yes, we need to have that productive dialogue, but if they're not ready and they're not in a life event, you're not going to just go say some magic word that's going to get them to take action.
And don't get us wrong. There's things that you can say to make people more comfortable with the process, or you, or something like that. So, for instance, we had Nick McLean on here, and one thing he said, and it resonated with us because we feel the same way, is just that people don't take the next step until they know what the next step is.
Right.
Okay. Well, so you being an educator about the home buying process is important, because people aren't going to move down the line of buying a home until they understand the whole process. So yes, those things are important, but someone's just not going to buy a house unless they need to buy a house, unless there's a life event that says it's time to buy a house. And so that's what we mean by getting people off the fence.
Yes. All right, so here's how people make decisions. These are the things that people need to hear. There are 5 things that people need to hear. So I want you to imagine an upside down pyramid, okay? And we're going to start at the top, and we're going to work our way down to the decision point. And this is how this works, okay? So first, they need to understand, at the top of the funnel, they need to understand that the company they're working with is a reputable company. It doesn't need to be much. It can be 15 seconds. One time I was buying a TV And it was like, everything looked good. The TV looked good. But I'm like, I was at Best Buy. I was like, what's Insignia? And they were like, oh, that's just
our house brand or whatever.
Yeah, that's their house brand, but so-and-so makes it, right? And so I was instantly okay with it. But I just needed to know what that was. So people need to understand that there's a reputable company behind you. So all it takes is 10 to 15 seconds. You can say something, very quick and easy. Hey, we're a local company. We've got about 50 agents, so on and so forth. And that's all that they need to hear, is that there is a solid reputation and that there's a belief system in this company. Okay. After that, they need to like you as a person. And a lot of people want to keep, their perception is, well, I want to be a professional. Or I want to perceive myself as a professional. That's why we're not advocates of like separating your social media into a business page, into a personal page. You're not there yet, right? As a business, people need to know and like you as an individual. And so whatever you can do to share about your life and get to know them and their life so you guys can connect at some level, the more you do that, the better. And so, I'm not saying you got to have a therapy session about, the things that you're struggling with, but I'm saying people want to know you and why you are the way you are, who's around you. What's the driving force behind why you got into real estate? Whatever it is, to kind of create a connection point where they understand you as a person and like you as a person.
Or at least respect you.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
the reason why I say it like that is just that, you guys don't have to be best friends, but there has to be some sort of connection point there, whether they like your approach or you're from the same hometown, whatever it is, there's some sort of human connection so that they feel okay moving forward with you.
Yeah, exactly. The third thing is people need to like the product, right? And that's when we get into the discussion about, bedrooms, bathrooms, all of those things. So they need to be satisfied with the product that they're buying. Okay. This is rarely something you're going to be able to sell them on. This is how I explain it. You need to help them in the discovery process, because when people come to you and they're ready to buy a house or they're ready to sell a house, 90% of the time there's a mismatch between their expectation of price and reality.
That's right.
The reality of price. Sellers are always a little bit, they're probably 5% high and buyers are probably 5% low, right? So they're coming in, they're like, oh yeah. So they've got this bracketed approach. I want to buy a $400,000 house. But the expectation they have in a house is like, no, that's a $500,000 house or a $450,000 house. So you've got to address that at some point, but it's not something where I'm like, nah, you can't buy that. It's more of, well, let's see what's available in the price range, right? Let's see, or the other approach would be, let me send you things that are in that neighborhood that fit your criteria, and then we can look at pricing.
Yeah. And especially with first-time home buyers, this is a discovery process. More often than not, you're listening to everything that they say, because what they're telling you they want is usually different than what they actually want or need. So you're listening to everything, you're showing them, what they ask you to show them, but you're also finding things that are more aligned with what they're actually saying. Mm-hmm. And they have to go through their own discovery process of like what it means to buy a home and what they actually need. Because if you've never owned a home, you might not know.
Well, I like to deal with, the other thing is like, I like to deal with the product before we get into the price discussion. So if you go in, it's like, hey, what are you guys looking to spend? If you go in with the product, then we don't have a crisis later. So, because if they haven't said the price yet, and I'll go through a little bit of a dialogue here as it could say ample later. But, again, if I say, okay, you want a 4-bedroom, 3-bath in such and such neighborhood, let's look at those first, because buyers are typically going to buy higher than they told you anyway.
Yep.
But
if
again,
they can,
if they can, if it fits, or they're going to adjust their expectation.
And that'll be a discussion you can have, right? You can say like, look, you really want this and it costs this. So where do we compromise? Do we compromise on price? Do we compromise on product?
Right.
Usually it's price. Usually people come up in price to get the things that they want, unless there's just a hard limit, and you'll find that out from the lender. But usually people are like, hey, I'm probably going to spend 5% more than I thought I would.
Right. But again, the more you set this up as a discovery process, the better.
Yep.
So we're in this discovery process. You are the guide, right, to help them discover that right house for them. Okay. Then we're going to talk about pricing, right? We're going to talk about budget. Or the other thing that we want to talk about in pricing is like, hey, help them understand how to make a wise decision in their pricing. So like understanding how comps work. The other thing I like to talk about is how the price is going to affect the payment up front. Because people get so dialed in on finding something in that imaginary price that they came up with, but they're not thinking that $10,000 one way or the other isn't going to affect the payment very much at all.
No.
I mean, right now, 10 grand is going to, I mean, depending on interest rates and all that stuff, there's a lot of variables, but I mean, generally what's going to
$100. But here's the thing also is like, you should have, and we said this so many times, but in the buyer consultation, a lot of this needs to be discussed. Like what point in the transaction you're actually spending money. So when you go under contract, you're going to need an inspection. You're going to need an appraisal. Those things come out of pocket first. And then, once you get to the closing table, it's not just the down payment, it's also closing costs. But yeah, all of that comes into play. And they need to understand in a market like today where you can ask for seller concessions, that means a lot more than the price. So I would almost be willing in some cases to pay full price or above asking, depending on how many offers are on the table and whatnot, if it meant I got a bunch of concessions back. So that's also something that you can discuss with them.
We had an agent that was writing her first offer the other day, and her clients, they were trying to figure out what to offer, and so we were kind of doing some guidance on the back end of that, and they said, well, we want to offer, X amount of dollars, and she said, well, that's probably a little low for this price point, and they go, well, we can pay less, or we can pay more of our closing costs to get that price. I'm like, well, why would you do that? Yeah. Right? Why wouldn't you just pay $3,000 more and keep the $3,000 in your pocket?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to change the monthly payment like $20, but yet you're going to get $10,000 in concessions or something.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it means a lot more to ask right now for concessions.
So I like to have that discussion again as a part of that consultation, because that way it gets them thinking right about how to negotiate and what that price really means, which it's only affecting their payment a little bit. And also, the best part of buying a house is the equity that you're going to gain over the next 3 to 5 years, not you winning on $2,500 in this negotiation. Yeah. So it's almost like a pre-negotiation with your client to get them to solid ground to where they have a good understanding and a tempered approach to the negotiation process. Okay. Also understanding what's normal for the marketplace during that time. And how all that stuff, what closing costs are, all of those things are a part of that price discussion and helping them make a wise decision. So we'll talk about the money, and the big thing, by the way, to always tell them this is going to cost you money before we get to the closing table. Yeah. You're going to pay for inspections. You're going to pay for the appraisal. You're going to have some earnest money. So make sure you always tell them. Okay, and the last, right? So we're at the bottom of the pyramid. Okay, we're at the decision point. It's the timing. And this is where most agents get hung up, because they haven't taken the time to discover the intention of the buyer, why they're leaving, why they're moving, why they're buying. What's the intention here? And so that's where everybody gets really tied up. We need to find the life event. So this is one that if a client says, hey, if the right house comes up, we'll buy something. Nope. I would run away. I mean, not run away from the conversation, but I would not get tied up in going out and trying to follow up and trying to get them to make a decision, because that's not real.
Yeah. You'll hear something very specific. My lease is up in 4 months. My husband's taking a new job across town in 3 months. Something like that. We're having a baby in 6 months. Whatever it is, you're going to hear something very specific that's going to tell you we need to be in something by this date.
Yeah. So it's, again, life events, the old diamonds, diapers, diplomas, divorce, and death, right? That's why people move, is not just because they want to. They're moving because they have to, right? There's something that's happening in their life that's causing that move to happen. It's too big a decision, too much money to spend to do on a whim. yes, there are going to be exceptions to that, but generally that's what you're looking for in the conversation is that life event. You're discovering that life event. So you know what your timeline is and know how to advise them. So don't, again, if you haven't discovered that, we need to dig and ask questions to ask that. And it really is pretty simple. It's nothing super complicated. So it's just being like, hey, so tell me what the ideal time frame is and why are you guys moving? Right? So let's talk about a sample. I'm going to give you a little sample of a buyer consultation. And to set this up, this would be like with someone that I don't know, haven't met, referred by a friend, and they are moving in from out of state. Okay, so that's sort of the scenario. So the first thing I said, hey, yeah, just a little bit about our company. We're a local company based in Franklin, Tennessee. We have about 60 agents, and we've been here for about 4 years, and we focus on giving our clients a world-class experience. And about me, I'm a husband and father. I've been married for 23 years. I have 6 children. That usually is a conversation starter. And then they're aged from 19 to 5. So I'd love to learn more about you guys. Okay. And so they tell that we do the family thing. We talk back and forth and I go, okay, so tell me what you guys are looking for. Okay. And this is where I'm in the product part of the conversation, right? So I've gone from company, I've gone from salesperson, we're getting to know each other. Now we're in the product part of the conversation. Tell me what you guys are looking for. They go, we need a 5-bedroom, 4-bath. We need an office. We want a big back porch. We want a big yard. We'd like to be in this school system. And I say, okay, great. So I might take that opportunity to pull up a couple of houses, or I might even know a particular area. And I'll say, yes. So that you probably want to budget between, 850 and 1.2 million. I said, depending on what neighborhood you choose, if you're going to be in, Fieldstone Farms, we might be able to find you something for 750. If you want to be in West Haven, we're going to be in, 1.2 starter. We might be able to find something a little smaller. And that's where we get into that discussion of, hey, is that going to fit? Is what they expect going to fit in their price point? Okay, so we've talked about the product before we get to the price. Okay, and then the other thing that I'm going to have in that conversation is like, okay, great. They might be a little bit like, oh, well, we were thinking more along the, we were thinking less than 650. And I go, okay, no problem. So let's look in this neighborhood, right? Then from that point, I'm going to go, all right, are you guys pretty happy with the lender you're working with? And they go, well, we haven't really found a lender. Do you have somebody? It's like, yep, I've got somebody great. And at that point, I'm going to say, let me have him. I'm going to text him and you guys so you guys can connect. And then when would be a good time for you guys to look, right? And and the other thing I'm discovering is I go, okay, well, when do you guys need to be in your new place? What's your target date for moving? And we've got all those things figured out. And then I'll go, all right, so let's talk about the process and how this works. And that's when I usher them into the buyer consultation where we're going through offer writing negotiation, we're going through inspections, we're going through appraisal, we're going through closing. And what I would recommend to you guys is to have sort of a cheat sheet with you, right? So you're not missing a step in this process. Everything I just explained to you, they're going to be figuring that out at some point. You need to make sure that you usher that in and you're not surprised by it later. Because those things will come up later if you don't address them.
Yeah, and more often than not, here's where agents would just skip over that and start showing houses. And people want to be educated, especially if they've never bought a home. And maybe they have bought a home, but it's been 10 years or something. You'd be surprised at the steps that people don't understand through the process. So the more you can educate, the better off you'll be. People appreciate it. People want to understand. It's a big purchase, the biggest one they'll ever make. So they definitely want to understand how it works from here. So we've had a conversation, take me to closing. And people want to understand that.
The other thing that I'll just bring up in terms of like, well, if you've got a friend and they already know you as a person, but maybe they don't know your company, you still need to go back and cover this. And then also you need to still walk them through this process. This is where things get messed up a lot for agents, is that they don't take the time to do it. with the people that are close to them. And so the people who are close to them that are in their community don't trust them.
Yeah, leaving out any one of these steps is a mistake. Because if you jump straight to product, which is what most agents do, what do you want? 3-2? Okay, here's some 3-2s, here's this. And they don't understand the company or the person. They don't have any rapport built up. They're probably just going to find the next agent. If they go into a new construction community, they're probably just going to use the builder's lender. They're probably just going to use the builder's agent because they haven't built up rapport with you. Now, if they understand you, understand what you're about, your company, everything, and you've walked them through the whole process, they're going to have some sort of loyalty to you. And when they went to a new construction community, they might register you as their lender or as their agent or whatever. So you need that. Every step is important because if you skip some, it messes up the whole thing.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, the other thing is, this is going to sound funny to a lot of you guys on that company piece, because people don't understand a lot of times how this works. So I've had situations before where, let's just say I was very early in my career. I was with a newer company in Oklahoma, and there was a time where, things weren't going great. It was taking a little longer than normal to sell. And they said, we really just want to go with a company that's more known here. And that's because I didn't take the time to explain to them how that works. Like that company, it's like we're all still going to put stuff on the MLS. But it was just funny that they said that because they didn't understand. They thought, well, maybe if the company had more reputation or was more known in the area, then we'd sell our house faster.
Get more exposure or something.
It's because your house is overpriced. But people don't understand that. So that's why you have to take the time. We all walk into these scenarios with assumptions about what our clients understand, and that's not necessarily the case. The general principle, though, is that people they're not doing this every day like you are. Don't make assumptions about what people know, and take some time to explain, to walk through these processes. Okay, what else?
That's it. I think it's time to watch the Masters.
Yeah, it is time to watch the Masters. That's right. So again, you guys take some time to like, subscribe. Thank you guys for joining us. We will see you next week.